On today's episode of Yeah, That's a Thing That Exists, the jewel wasp, also known as the emerald cockroach wasp. These guys are a type of very small solitary wasp that are native to a few areas in Africa, Asia, and some Pacific islands. Now, jewel wasps are very highly parasitic and have a very interesting life cycle. As you may guess from the other name, it does involve cockroaches. Jewel wasps rely on cockroaches as a host for their eggs to grow up in, so the female wasp, after mating, has to go find a cockroach. What happens after she finds a suitable cockroach is she will sting the cockroach in a very specific spot in the head, right in one of the ganglia or brains of the roach. Now, this has many functions. The venom will kind of somewhat paralyze the roach, however not full paralysis. Since this is a rather small wasp, she still needs the roach to be able to move fully on its own. So the sting damages the ganglion and turns off the escape response. Specifically, it messes with the neurotransmitter octopamine. Now, octopamine is very similar to norepinephrine and fulfills the same fight or flight function that norepinephrine does in vertebrates, octopamine does in invertebrates. So essentially, the sting from this wasp will turn off the neurotransmitter fight or flight response, making the roach incredibly docile. Next, once the roach is fully subdued, the jewel wasp will chew off half of the antenna of the roach and use those as kind of a leash or lead to pull the roach back to the burrow of the female jewel wasp. Once in the burrow, she will lay her eggs on the outside of the roach by the legs and just kind of seal up the burrow to go find another roach victim and just leave it there. Once the larvae hatch in a couple days, they start to feed on the roach, which really does not give a fuck because the escape response has been fully turned off, so it just kind of sits there in the burrow being fed on by these wasp larvae. The wasp larvae will continue to feed on the roach and grow, and once they reach full size, they will enter the organs and fully consume, thus killing the roach finally, and then transform into the full adult wasps, at which point they will emerge from the burrow and go ahead to mate and continue the circle of life and fucked up cockroach parasitism. Now, fortunately, these guys are not in any way harmful to humans. They have a comparatively mild sting compared to some other types of wasps, and luckily, since we have norepinephrine instead of octopamine, we do not get our fight or flight turned off by a sting from these guys because it doesn't affect our neurotransmitters, as we have very different ones than bugs do. And as a bonus, they take care of roaches, which is usually a good thing.